Welcome back to Whence, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Robert Johnson. This is episode 198. In the news this week, the Masonic Radio Theater, the Western parts are coming in. People are recording their parts and they are slowly coming in. We'll be starting to stitch those together just as soon as we get all of them in. The Masonic Roundtable, we had an episode last week called The Operatives. It was so amazing to hear about the operative lodges. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's a lodge that really bases its teachings on the actual Mason guilds, the builders' guilds, to which we are believed to have been derived. These lodges are pretty amazing. They convey 7 degrees. They are a little bit different than what we're used to, and if you know your Masonic history, you know a lot of people talk about how Masonry was originally 7 degrees, including the Royal Arch. Well, that's kind of true, and really the literature tends to point to the facts that Masonry was 7 degrees, but it was these operative 7 degrees. So your first and second degree were very much just as they were today, and the allegory of the 3rd degree that we use today was not around yet. And soon later, these degrees kind of split off, and some people say they became the Royal Arch, but those degrees are very similar to these operative degrees. Now, the degrees went from 7 degrees to just 2 degrees, and then we added this Master Mason degree, and then of course all these appendant bodies came out. So it is some super interesting stuff. I would really encourage you to go check out that episode. You can watch it on Google Plus or on YouTube. It's infinite there. You can watch it in perpetuity anytime you want, but it was a really fun episode. Next, I wanted to mention that we do have an interview with Brother Mike Toth, who is the producer and film director who is putting together this Masonic TV show that you might have heard about on Indiegogo. They are trying to raise $300,000 for a pilot. Now, that doesn't pay for the pilot. A pilot obviously cost around $7 to $8 million, but this $300,000 that they're trying to raise will pay for all the legal fees and shopping around the contract to make this project a success. So look for that next week. That'll be episode 199, leading up to our incredible 200th episode. It'll be a special episode for sure. Did want to mention we do have our lapel pins, tie bars, cufflinks, and money clips, which are available. Of course, the cufflinks, the tie bars, and the money clips are in severe limited quantity, so if you want them, get them. If you like the button style pins, I've got those also. I have a few left. They're only $5. I have copies of Tales from the Craft by illustrious Brother Stephen L. Harrison on the WCY store. $18, ships anywhere in the U.S., which is a match of Amazon, only you're getting it from our brother and some way better packaging. And we also ship international for $25 flat rate, so check those out. There is a new book out by Brother Stephen L. Harrison. It is awesome. I just got it. I started digging into it. It is Freemasons at Oak Island. It is really cool. It's not a super long book. You can blast through it in probably a couple hours on your lunch break if you wanted to. Well, I don't know who has a 2-hour lunch break, but in any case, it is a great book. Check that out. I did have to give a huge shout out to Worshipful Brother Adam Gross, and of course, Jim Fletcher. These guys were some of the most hospitable brothers I have ever met, and they treated me like a king while I was there. I don't know what to do or what to say, how to say thank you, but thank you so much, guys. If you ever get a chance, anybody who's listening, and you're in the Kentucky area right across the Ohio River, go to Newport 358. These guys have great meetings. The lodge is beautiful. Again, guys, thank you so much. It was just a tremendous honor to be able to come down there and present. And on a sad note, I did want to take a moment here and get a moment of silence. We had a passing of one of our good friends, listeners, supporters, Brother Gerald Brown. His father passed away. I'd like it if you guys would all just join me in a moment of silence. All right, God bless Brother Gerald Brown. You have our deepest condolences, our sympathies, and if we can do anything for you, you know that you can just shoot us an email. All right, so last week I had mentioned that we would have a guest on the show. Many people loved the episode, The Talk with Frater O. Well, Frater O is back this week, and we had a wonderful talk. We talked about the subject called Know Thyself. So without any further ado, let's dig right in. All right, guys, we're back again with Frater O. You guys all asked, when the next time I was going to have him on was. It's now. The time is now. So we're hanging out. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and the topic today is Know Thyself. And Frater O basically suggested this weeks ago. We had plans and our schedules just kind of got mixed up. I started a new gig, so things got a little hairy. But we're back on schedule. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and the conversation. Again, I'd invite you to email Brother O after the episode. If you have any questions, comments, you want to chit-chat about things, he's more than willing to answer emails. So, Brother O, thanks for being on the show again.
Again, thank you for having me back. It's amazing what this podcast has done for the fraternity, or just people in general just searching for enlightenment.
Awesome, man. You're part of the show. So the topic, you suggested Know Thyself, and we had some conversations about this years ago. We've been talking about Know Thyself forever. And to give people a little bit of a base knowledge, before we kind of jump into the esoteric and philosophical meanings, Know Thyself is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, Delphic Maxims. And it's called a Delphic Maxim because there is a temple in Greece, Delphi, that is dedicated to the god Apollo. Legend says that they're called aphorisms, or just sayings. These sayings were given to the Greek god Apollo's oracle of Delphi, and so they're attributed to Apollo. And some say that they are also attributed to the 7 sages of Greece. Again, the most popular one being Know Thyself. And it's actually carved into, that saying anyway, is carved into Apollo's temple at Delphi. These maxims there are over 100 of them, and they vary in number and statement by version of the text, the translation. But if you guys are listening and you're on your computers, just type in Delphic Maxims and you could pull up a Wikipedia, and it's a very short article. It's just a spreadsheet numbered 1 through 147 with the original Greek text to the left, and on the right the sayings. And these things are neat, they're like, number 1, follow God, intend to get married, control yourself, help your friends, control anger, exercise prudence, honor providence, downlook no one, use your skill, do what you mean to do, be on your guard, detest disgrace, restrain the tongue, make just judgments. So these are some of the coolest maxims, I guess you would say, and I think as Masons we really identify with these sort of things. I mean, some people kind of make a correlation to commandments and things like that. And I guess you could. There are several of these that fit under those broad categories. But today we're talking about Know Thyself. And one of the other Delphic maxims that's in here is called Speak Plainly. What that means is we're going to try to do that today too. We're going to speak plainly about this, and we're just going to lay it all out. Whether we go way out into the ocean in your mind, like maybe we're way off base or not, but we're just going to talk. We're just going to go for it and have an organic conversation. Brother O, what is your take? What's your initial thoughts about Know Thyself?
Now, much of Freemasonry's allegory and symbolism in the present day centers around the allegory of King Solomon's temple. It is the link which binds speculative craft to operative masons long ago. Our speculative masonry teaches us that every man is incomplete, pretty much an unfinished temple. And using symbolic tools, his task here on earth is to finish that great work. Symbolically, we see every mason as a builder of his own spiritual temple. And along that journey and along that path, you really have to take a hard look at yourself. And I'm not saying look at yourself in the mirror, but more of that introspection. Any mason can find, at the house of the temple, the tiler's chair outside of the grand lodge on the top floor. It actually carved into it is the Know Thyself into the chair, which is pretty powerful. As well as you can look at allegories throughout movies or symbolism. Prime example is The Matrix, which when you start going down philosophical journeys or paths, you find when Neo walks through the door to meet the Oracle, there's a think it's a Latin translation above that door. I forget the exact wording, and I don't want to butcher it here because I know the flamers of the trolls online will rip me to shreds.
They will. They really will.
I think it's Tempe Nores or something along those lines, and of Know Thyself. So it's consistently found, and these are only small examples throughout history. And when you're the true philosophical Mason or esoteric, they're always searching for that better understanding. And how do you apply those working tools to the invisible things of zeal and character and those things that you physically cannot put your hands on? And so any builder, any true Mason, you're applying those to yourself. And this is an important topic that I know a lot of Masons miss the mark. They don't apply those. They go, okay, this is great, I want more. And they keep searching for more in books, or they keep joining research bodies. And I've personally been in this path. A few years ago when I first started becoming a Mason, as well as maybe you might agree or concur, is that you keep searching externally and you do not apply those working tools to yourself, or those simple things you were taught in the first 3 degrees, and getting to know yourself, bettering yourself, leveling yourself up like a video game. When you better yourself, you better everyone around you, and you better your lodge. So many people want to sit and talk about how bad their life is, or how bad so-and-so is, or how bad lodge is, or, instead of being that person that applies those working tools to better whatever aspect of their life is. And along that journey, Know Thyself is an important step.
I have to agree with you on many points. Specifically, we say Know Thyself, right? And the interesting thing is that you said people, when they join Masonry, they hit the fan and they spread out too far. They go everywhere. They're looking everywhere for the answers. Maybe something is left incomplete in the Blue Lodge, and you're told to search elsewhere for it. Okay, so maybe it's in the York Rite, and you go to the York Rite, and it's not there. And then you go to the Scottish Rite, and it's not there. And then you join the Shrine, and guess what? It's not there either. And then you join the AMD, and it's not there. And you join this, and it's not there. It's not here. It's not anywhere. It's nowhere. And then people kind of are like, oh, yeah, I didn't find what I was looking for in Mason. And you say, wow, that's incredible. I'm really sorry that you feel that way. What happened? And they tell you. And then maybe you have this opportunity to tell them, well, did you do the work? You're charged in every degree to do work, relating to the working tools you're presented. At public ceremonies here in Illinois, we do a cornerstone laying, and the grand orator usually says some things about the working tools. He tells us that the plumb admonishes us to be upright, and the level, that we should be ever mindful that we're on a linear path and that our time is limited, and that we should always act upon the square, making sure that all our actions are square, meaning that they're just and right. And that's just a taste, though. You're looking at that, and when they say that, they memorize it for their catechism so that they can move on to the next degree, but did they really do that? Have they been just? Are they aware of their linear timeline here on earth? Are they aware that time is limited in which to do the good work? Are you being an upright individual? Do these symbols take a place in your mind, and do they remind you daily to be better? I have to say, you get a lot of folks, some people, they go to church to get this message, some folks don't, but it's that same thing when somebody goes to their weekly meetings or their churches, and when they get taught these lessons, some don't take them to heart and some do. And I think it's kind of sad when they don't, because now you're missing what Masonry was trying to give you. Those tools, as Brother O is talked about, they are meant to be applied to yourself, and when you just kind of skip over that and you glaze over it because you think it's just ritual, or you think it's just whatever, it's just this silly part of the degree, well, now you've taken a step off the path, and it's your job to get back to it. And if you're just now realizing this, and this is the first time you're hearing this on this show, I shouldn't say I apologize for people who didn't tell you this before, but I do feel bad, and I hope you guys get back on the path, because really this what it's all about, is knowing thyself. Because by applying these things, you start to get a better understanding of the person you are, whether that means, your psyche, your soul, whatever you want to call it, and you really are working at becoming a better human being as far as your actions and all the things associated with that. My question for you is, what do you think the end goal is for Know Thyself? Why is it so important?
There's a reason why this experience exists, right? There's a reason why you're you, and there's human beings on Earth. There's a rhyme, and there's a reason why this place exists. Now, I don't have the answers why. However, there is a path in front of everyone. There is a journey in front of it. And along that journey, you really need to take a look deep into yourself and ask those philosophical questions. Why? Now, why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? Ultimately, sometimes along that path, people come along, well, where do we come from? But I'm really interested in the two, in our discussion. And along that journey, you really start to turn that inwards. And when you start to turn that inwards, that's where you start to find those answers. It's usually in the last place that you look.
Agreed.
So if you start looking at the allegory of King Solomon's temple that's presented, making correlations between the layout of King Solomon's temple and a human body consistently. And if you start looking at what each pillar represented, if that was possibly a leg, what the middle chamber represented, it's very unique. That's taught in the second degree. There's also a unique system on stairs and how to climb stairs, and how that stair system works in the second degree. And then when you get to the third, you're presented with the understanding of the holies of the holies, where the Ark of the Covenant, so to speak, was housed in the east of King Solomon's temple. And the Most High, only the high priests were only allowed into those areas. And if you look at the east, for an example, as the head of King Solomon's temple, you'll see some unique things. And so when you start getting towards the Ark of the Covenant, representing possibly the pineal gland. Now, this has been written about extensively in esoteric topics, and referred to in some Eastern philosophies as the third eye, the brow chakra, or in mystic Christianity, Christ consciousness, in the Kabbalah, it's written about as Dot, or the name that's not supposed to be said. And so, depending on whatever system, it shows you this. And again, Masonry has a unique way of presenting the allegory of the human body and the occult anatomy. And when I use the word occult, I want to make a clear translation here to those new esoteric thinkers and those people that aren't Masons who think that we're bad. Occult is the Latin term or the translation for hidden. So the hidden body of man, it's been written about since the beginning of time in ancient cultures and esoterics, as well as you can look at buildings throughout the temple of, different cultures. There's usually a building that's similar laid out to the building of King Solomon's temple. You can also look at the symbology of allegories represented in layouts of cities or Gothic cathedrals, this architecture being hidden in plain sight. So if you look at all the Gothic cathedrals, they were built by the building guilds of the Sons of Solomon, by the Knights Templar. And if you were afraid knowledge was going to be hidden or be destroyed or being taken away from you, what's the best way to hide that, RJ? What do you think?
Well, you have to look at the age-old technique of literally hiding things, or perhaps at the point it wasn't hidden, but you could look at things like the Great Pyramids, right? I mean, they built those to withstand time. And now, things like the Sphinx, you've got all kinds of people, they try to date that. There are experts who say, well, due to erosion, this thing is even older than this. So it alludes to, I guess you would even use the term antediluvian. When looking at these things, you have to ask yourself the question, how long ago was this? What did they know? And then I think the answers that you're going to get they're going to get mixed answers, but I think the best way that they've tried to convey ideas to future generations is by building structures, and perhaps they're hidden right there. Well, as we say, hidden in plain sight. You can look at, everybody's heard all kinds of the stories and conjectures related to Rosslyn Chapel. You heard Brother O talk about Solomon's Temple, which is a topic that he and I are very, very interested in, and we will have something out about that probably by the end of the year, hopefully soon, well, soon anyway. And according to that, you have all kinds of buildings that lay up to this same design. And it's a Phoenician design, to be sure, specifically speaking about the Solomon's Temple. And they have found several temples that use the same design, not as grand on scale, but all over the Middle East. And as Brother O can attest, we have done some pretty good research and actually laid that design out over other cities.
Yeah, it's interesting if you go into Google Maps and you look out usually at the nation's capital of any first world, you see unique correlations between the allegory of King Solomon's Temple and the nation's layout of the Capitol building, usually with unique symbology that's represented into it. There's a non-Mason in particular, for people that are more interested in these topics. I think he's a professor at Berkeley in California. His goes by the name of Scott Onslaught, or Onset. Excuse me, Scott, if you're listening and I butchered your last name. He does a documentary series that can be found on YouTube called Secrets in Plain Sight, and he uses Google Maps and he kind of uncovers a lot of this. Pretty fascinating. His research is really, really deep, as well as he has a book series, and I believe he just came out with a second volume, like a DVD series that's not for free on YouTube. And for Masons or non-Masons, I think that's important stuff. So again, we keep seeing this symbology represented consistently hidden in plain sight over and through architecture, through layouts of nations' capitals and ancient buildings, to even the Luxor Temple of Man of ancient Egypt. That's a beautiful, beautiful temple. As it Swallow Delubes, the curator from the 1800s at the London Museum, wrote two beautiful books on that Luxor temple in particular, called The Temple in Man and The Temple of Man. And I'm not sure if he was a Mason, but he dives deeply into the esoterics with ancient Egyptian cultures. And he's written some books along those lines as well. So diving all the way back, we're back to the human body. We're talking about really the human body, and the New Age movement gets into this pretty extensively with a lot of people, especially since the beginning of 2012, have talked about higher states of consciousness, talked about the pineal gland. There was a very, very unique documentary that came out from research that was done by Dr. Rick Strassman called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. And there's also a book from research from 1996 that was studying the Class A psychedelic called dimethotriptamine and the effects on 200 plus patients in clinical settings, funded by the DEA and funded by the Scottish Rite, which is pretty unique. And it's pretty unique that they were all experiencing mystical states, and they were all getting to higher states of consciousness or crossing over to the spirit world. And his theory is proposed that it's activating that gland, the third eye, that's been referred to as by many, many mystical traditions. So I do not advise taking these psychedelics. These are shortcuts. If anything, they're going to put more roadblocks in front of any esoteric Mason, and only deter you from the path of really knowing thyself. And if you're interested in these topics, I would recommend you research these. There are shamanistic centers in Peru and along the Amazon rainforest where there's medicine men that have been working with these brews and these drugs, according to the United States, in really safe settings, and really safer settings than a simple Class A drug. But I'm only talking about the drug in a sense as it pertains to activating higher states of consciousness. That's a shortcut. How do you feel about I know you've researched this extensively on the esoteric hidden anatomy of King Solomon's Temple And I know I've kind of gone on quite a tangent here. Please give me your insights, how you feel.
All right. So for me, know thyself really comes down to the philosophies and the allegories that were given to me, not just in Blue Lodge, but in all of the degrees. Now, of course, as I received degrees, there are other meanings to the degrees. Some of them don't necessarily refer to a working tool and how I'm supposed to apply it to my life to be able to make myself better. But I do believe that those degrees further the fellowship, and they ground me again within the teachings of Masonry. So Masonry is always on a Mason's mind, you know. I mean, that's why we do these degrees, because it does ingrain something into our consciousness and affects us on the deepest level. And so knowing thyself, and how does this translate, if you're asking yourself this, how does this translate to the hidden body of man, right? Well, man is yourself. You are yourself. But what are you? My son, kids blow you away with some of the things they say, because they say things before they've had a chance to be corrupted by other adult minds, by statements that tend to limit their potential for the rest of their life because somebody told them they can't do something, right? My son said to me one day, "Dad, sometimes it really feels like we're not real." And I had to stop and think about it for a few minutes. And I said, well, we're real as we understand ourselves, but we have to know who we are. We have to look inside, and we have to know who we are to not take away that feeling, but to understand that feeling. And he was really interested in the subject. And he's only, at the time, he was 7 years old. And I think a lot of that comes from seeing some of the books and stuff that I read. I have no doubt he's picked up some little things here or there, and he's been to lodge a few times, on a handful of occasions, and he's seen some public ceremony stuff, and he's a thinker. And it got me thinking, now today, he looks at people a really interesting way. And if you've ever seen Alien or Aliens, there's a scene where Ripley, the hero of the movie, she battles an alien, but she's small, so she hops inside like this giant mech machine that, she's inside, that she can control. She's like Voltron or Power Ranger or whatever you want to call it, and she battles the alien. And it's kind of interesting because you have to look and say, we know what we are because we can look at ourselves. We're a flesh and blood thing. You have to ask, who are we, right? And even I'm 33 right now. And even at this age, I cannot know what exactly we are. We're something that sits inside of a machine that controls it, right? We're a consciousness, we're a soul, a spirit, a something. And we're seated somewhere inside this machine. Now, you have to understand that I'm talking about a machine because machines can be mechanical. And that's what everybody thinks when you say machine, is you think of a mechanical machine. But what about a biological machine? It's still a machine. So we are something that is inside of a biological machine. And I have to thank my son at 7 years old for kind of making this epiphany in my head. And that was the first real start, I think, of looking at it in a new way. Know thyself. You ask yourself, well, I don't know what exactly we are, but we're here. And we're inside these things. And there's an internet meme that was floating around for a while, and it said something to the effect of, we are not men with souls. We are souls with men. Implying that we are these things that have these bodies, not the other way around. I look at it in an interesting way, that knowing thyself is the first step, or realizing that we don't exactly know what we are, is the first step in this journey. Using these working tools and this kind of things to apply to your life to make yourself not only a better human being, but to better understand what exactly we are. And these interesting correlations to Solomon's Temple or the Luxor, Temple of Man, these kind of correlations or these exposés or illustrations that we draw only help to further the knowledge and the understanding that we might find. And if you find something that kind of does one of these comparisons or is one of these occult anatomy pictures, you can look at it all day long and there's so much information. But I think it's not about translation. I think it's about contemplation. And I think there is definitely a way to interpret that. But I think the more a person looks at it and the more they think about how it corresponds, because what happens is people have a tendency to leave things on the shelf and look at it all day without actually using it with purpose. It's kind of like the way you can hand somebody a tool and they put it on the shelf and it's great and they have it, but it's not until you put it in their hand that they realize that it's a real physical thing. And so we can sit here and we can talk about the esoteric nature of Know Thyself, and it provides somebody with a brief period of excitement and research, but it takes a special person to, and this goes back to something Brother O has said over and over again, it's not just about knowing, the way to do it. It's about you have to walk the walk. You have to walk the path. He said last time we talked, nobody can eat for you. And I think that's especially important. So, Brother O, let me ask you of Knowing Thyself. What does that do for you? What do you think it does for you or anybody else?
There was a wise philosopher, I forget who said it, but the more I learn, the less I know. And I can honestly say I don't know. As you progress along a path, you learn more and more and more. You think you have an idea, but then it's like an onion. When you uncover another layer, what you thought you knew, you have no idea.
Right.
That you knew there was another level. There was a unique saying I read along the lines of the fish in the sea do not see the birds. Let's stop and think about that line. The fish are just going about their business and they're doing their own thing, and they have this whole ocean. They have no idea that there's air above.
Right.
And there's birds circling up there, and there's a whole another life. And you can find this in alchemical paintings and pictures, or even stuff that was in The Secret Teachings of Manly P. Hall by Augustus Knapp. That it pervades a lot of this, and I have no idea. I can't answer that because it's such a deep topic, and I know we've kind of dove pretty deep to begin with, and I want to turn this around though now and ask the Masons or non-Masons or people listening to this is, what are you doing to change your life for the better? What are you doing, and how are you applying those working tools and really taking them to put them to work for you? How are you bettering your lodge? How are you bettering your family? How are you bettering your friends, your workplace, and your local community, if not your government or this planet Earth? What are you doing? And if you're not doing it, what's stopping you from doing it?
Great points. And I think that if you're not doing something, like Brother O says, what's stopping you from doing it? And I think in his question, if you think about that question, and when he asks you that question, if you respond, you've put your foot back on the path. The key is in the question, and I think he gave you the question to ask yourself anyway.
Well, absolutely. There's a really good quote along these lines, and just give me a second here. It's not by a Mason. It's something I read online. Our deepest fear is not that we are adequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us.
Isn't that the truth? How many people, and this is probably a topic for another day, but how many people get the information and the truth told to them, yet they continue to either A, not believe it, or B, just don't care because they're too comfortable? And I think that, like I said, that's a topic for another day, but I think that's part of the answer, is you need to be open to the possibilities of things outside your comprehension coming into your comprehension, and you need to be okay with it. I understand, there's that old aphorism that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I think that's a false statement. I think you need to get comfortable with new ideas. So, Brother O, how would you say you've used a lot of the things that we've learned over the years to better yourself and your life and those around you?
Yeah, that's a pretty deep question, and I'd love to answer that. And inside of everyone, there's demons. There's battles going on inside of everyone consistently. There's wars. People have no idea if you look at someone that they're going through internally. And how do you go about winning those battles for the better, for inside of yourself? Now, there's an old Hopi saying of, there's two wolves inside of everyone. There's the white wolf, and then there's the black wolf. And depending on how you think, it's actually what wolf you feed. And the Hopi Indian usually turns to the person and says, so what wolf are you feeding? And thoughts are powerful things. And how do you control that? And how do you better yourself, control your thoughts, help better the world around you and better yourself? And I'm not talking about superficial materialistic means by any means. I'm talking about, more of the superfluities of life. And so how do you better yourself? And, three things that Masons are taught, or I'm not going to reveal those three things, but I've translated those personally to diet, meditation, and exercise. And three things that have helped me the most are those three things. And right, so the important things is like you have this little voice inside your head, call it the ego or call it whatever you want, that always tells you that you're going to fail and you're not going to be good enough and you're never going to succeed or you'll never be able to get to wherever you're going. And I've found through my personal journey, exercise allows that little voice to get quieter and quieter and to defeat that voice. It's important too is the endocrine system in any Eastern medicine systems of Ayurvedic cultures or acupuncturist or Eastern medicine of traditional Chinese medicine always focuses on preventative maintenance and how important the glandular system of the endocrine has such a major toll on the mind, as well as the spinal column, and the whole system needs to be in a very alkalinity state for it to thrive, so cancers and bad bacteria will not grow. So for me, on top of exercise, I stick to a very plant-based Ayurvedic diet, and I've overcome some serious illnesses personally. And I'll be honest and open with those illnesses. I was diagnosed with lupus at 16. I struggled with massive ADD ever since I was a child, where I couldn't even comprehend or read a book until the changing of my diet. Anxiety, depression, a laundry list of pre-diabetes and high cholesterol and severe overweight. And through diet, you realize that how important that effect of the GI tract and the stomach and gut feelings and just being more in touch with that body, because this is your meat suit you talked about. This is your vessel to experience that. And that was a wonderful story that your son allowed you to expand your horizons. Well, how do you get more in touch with this vehicle to explore this space or this meat suit or flesh suit? And for me, I found diet to be really, really effective on really to get more in touch with my body. But also, you can't forget the other, third foundational pillar of meditation. So, it usually can be related to like the mind, body, and soul. Each one of these, diet, meditation, and exercise, play an important factor. And meditation is important is because we're always consistently bombarded by thoughts and things, and we're always thinking about so much we have to do. But how do you quiet again that mind, that ego, that just like everything that's going on, this race car, and how do you slow down this race car to a dead stop and get more in touch with the spiritual aspects of yourself? And meditation has helped me extensively. And one program in particular that might help any Mason along these paths that has helped me extensively is a program called Hemi Sync, Hemi Sync, and it's for hemisphere synchronization. And it was a program created by a gentleman named, who's not a Mason, Robert Monroe, wrote a couple unique books and founded a school down in Virginia called the Monroe Institute. It uses binaural beats per each side of the headphones when you listen to it for music, and it allows you to get to deeper states to yourself. And so those three things in particular have transformed my life extensively in a matter of 2 years, from a path that I was once on to where I'm at now. And before I turn it over to you, RJ, and ask you, to the Masons out there that are on similar paths, or even Masons, or people that aren't Masons, and people that are searching for enlightenment, let's just keep this an open forum. I mean, if you have anything that's working or is not working, or things that you disagree with, or things in general, just reach out to us and let us know, and we can keep that communication, going back and forth, because what works for me might not work for you listening to this podcast, or might not work for RJ, but it worked for me. So everyone's different. Everyone's body's different. So now turning this over to you, RJ, what things are you doing to know thyself?
Well, I think just to kind of relay and recap before I kind of go into it is that, in Masonry, it deals with the allegory of Solomon's Temple. And depending on your interpretation, we're just going to take the basic interpretation that Solomon's Temple is representative of the human body. And we're talking about squaring actions and the working tools and stuff that they use to build this temple. The building blocks of King Solomon's Temple, the building blocks of the human body. So it was very important to think about exactly what you're putting into the temple, what you're putting into your body. So in 2007 is when I petitioned to lodge, and in 2009 I was 28 years old, and I had a tremendous anxiety attack. First time I ever had in my life. I thought I was dying. I struggled with these for 2.5 years until I did two things. And at this point, I had not known Brother O. We hadn't talked yet, but through my own research and things like this, I started making small changes. And those changes, literally, it's going to sound silly, guys. Like, you might just be thinking, oh, these holistic guys, these blah, 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 whatever. But it's real. Diet. I don't mean like, diet soda. I mean what you're eating. I stopped eating garbage. I stopped, I'm not talking about, at first, I stopped doing, because it was an anxiety problem. I was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder. And I stopped having anything that could speed up or cause heart palpitations or anything like that, right? I was not drinking coffee. I had no peppermint, no nothing, no chocolate, no nothing, no fast food, nothing. Slowly and surely, I started kind of eating bad again, and the symptoms came back. And I said, okay, two things had to happen. Get back on the healthy diet. And I'm not talking about absolute living clean, no this, no that, no this, no that, but making smarter choices. You can have French fries every once in a while. That's cool. I don't want to turn this into a health food show, but I just made these healthy dietary choices, and my stomach felt better. My anxiety went away, which happened with the use of guided meditations. Shortly thereafter, I didn't have to take medicine anymore, and I haven't had to take medicine in a long time, years. And that's because I have reduced my stress levels, and I've changed my diet. And so it's really amazing. Perhaps I'm not going to pretend to understand what the base level of understanding and changing your diet or whatever these things happen, but essentially just eating cleaner. Maybe the chemicals or something that are in the food aren't affecting my hormone levels in my body in any weird ways. I mean, everything has effects. And so I made two changes. That was meditations, which I still love to do. And I can honestly say that Hemi Sync is amazing. After you do it, you feel strange the first time. And I'm going to just tell you, you do feel strange because you feel like an observer rather than an experiencer for probably 24 hours. It is an odd feeling, but it's a good feeling. You feel more in touch with yourself, your body, your surroundings. You feel more in tune. It feels like you can really pick up on people's feelings around you. You're more empathetic. It's quite an interesting feeling. I have to agree with Brother O that regardless of, what your tools and what you're using, what will work for you, these are just things that worked for us. And our initial and ultimate, I would call them interpretations, I guess, of some Masonic teachings. And, there are plenty of Masonic teachings. I mean, the grand secret of Masonry is not eat clean, meditate, and exercise. Of course, those are just general practices to keep your body and your mind, your soul in alignment, I guess you could call it. And that might help you to better yourself. It's been proven that exercise and all these kind of things help the mind stay healthy. And maybe that is a first step for you. Maybe it's a last step for you. I don't know. But for Brother O and I, it was right. Those were obstacles that were on our path that we had to get back in line with. Again, that allegory of Solomon's temple, how you want to interpret it, I think is just one small aspect of kind of know thyself. These practices, especially meditations, the guided meditations, whether you do them at a local group or you go down to the YMCA and you participate in something, or maybe you guys do it at work. I was, my last job, we would go on training sessions and we'd do a guided meditation. And I was really impressed that my job site was actually open to this. You're talking about a bunch of guys who train people on aircraft. And at the end of the session, we sat and we did a guided meditation with the director of training. And he did a guided meditation with us that was just so fantastic. And I gave him such kudos for it, because it took a real leap of faith to think that a bunch of working men like ourselves would be dogs and roll over and let them scratch our tummies, right? We're just going to go along with it. Okay, let's do it. And everybody, I don't care how tough the guy was, he said to himself, wow, this really worked. It was a real mind-opening experience. It was a tremendous de-stress activity. I think that's something else that really will help you on your journey to knowing thyself, because once you clear the clutter and once you get rid of the stress, you can focus on you. You can think clearly. And I would err on the side of caution, because I don't want to take people out of their comfort zones. But I think one of the first things that, if you're listening to this program and you're driving in your car, it means probably one of a couple things. You like a companion, right? So maybe the show is your companion. Maybe you like the sound of noise. Maybe you fall asleep at night with the TV on and you can't if it's not on. These are all interesting things, and they all have a connection, because I do these same things myself. I have a 38-minute commute. I want you guys to try something, even if it means you miss the show for a couple weeks, whatever. Try driving to work. Try falling asleep at night with nothing on. Don't turn the radio on. Don't listen to anything. Just be alone with your thoughts, and you will be surprised, because either you're going to find that you can't take it and you're going to subconsciously just reach for that radio dial after 10-15 minutes because you forgot that you're trying to drive in a quiet situation, or you're going to turn the television on, or whatever it might be. But a lot of people are afraid to be alone in their thoughts, and it's not afraid like you're afraid like spiders or something. You just have you're uncomfortable. But why are you uncomfortable to be alone with your thoughts? And so I think that's where I would like our listeners to, all the questions that we asked this week, and you're kind of thinking about how you can better yourself and some techniques, and hopefully we presented some interesting things. And in the show notes, of course, we're going to put links to Brother O's email, so you can email us and keep up with the conversations. We will post links to anything we talked about, the Monroe Institute, maybe some guides on different meditative techniques and things like this. And I hope it helps you guys out. And I hope that this new segment, kind of this esoteric talk about the philosophical teachings of Masonry and philosophical teachings in general about yourself and achieving that end goal of perhaps a higher state of consciousness, and to ultimately be a better, more optimized consciousness to drive this machine that we're stuck in for 80, 90, 100 years. So with that, I guess I would turn it over to Brother O for any closing comments.
Masonry is a great system because it presents working tools for yourself. Again, the whole idea of taking operative working tools and applying them to speculative ideas or things. And again, how are you taking those tools that you've been presented, and how are you applying them to yourself? Don't get me wrong, pancake breakfasts are great, and doing better for the local lodge. But now taking a deeper look at yourself, and now question yourself: how are you making your life better? How are you making your family's life better? Your friends, your lodge, your local community, your government, the country that you live in. How are you making it better? And I'm not saying by wealth or materialistic things. I'm talking again about the intangibles. And what you're doing, we'd love to hear. I know there was kind of a mix-up in the past regarding my email. For those, my email is Frater O Lux Lux at gmail.com. And shoot me an email or shoot RJ an email. We'd love to hear from you, or post a discussion on the Facebook wall. We just want to hear what's working for you, because maybe there's some things that we're not doing, and there's some things that have worked for you, and you find that that's helping you and that we could possibly use, or vice versa. So please keep that dialogue open, and really appreciate every brother or person in general that's listening to this. It means that you're looking for deeper aspects of yourself, and hopefully you're able to take away a few things from our discussion. And if you didn't, let us know.
Absolutely. So if there's something that you liked and you heard and you want more, and you want to know more about, or you want more discussion about, shoot us an email. We'd love to just break away and take that topic, go from wide to the smallest part of it, just dissect it. We'd love to. And if there's areas that you just thought were unnecessary, or you felt that had no place on the show, we welcome those as well. This is a work in progress, and I think these conversations in general are just free-flowing conversations that we would like to have, and conversations that, if you kind of liked that first episode, the talk, maybe you have those conversations quite frequently with other brothers in your lodge, or maybe you don't. Maybe that's why you like it, because of the conversations that you want to have. So either way, shoot us an email, let us know, give us some feedback. We really would love it. And with that, I'll say I hope the rest of you have a great morning, afternoon, night, whatever you guys are doing. Currently, it's 11:34 a.m. my time, and Brother O, it's just afternoon, so I think we're going to break, probably grab some lunch, and have a wonderful rest of the weekend. So I wish everybody the same, and that's it. Thanks for listening to the show, guys. All right, there you have it. A great conversation that we had with Frater O. The story behind Frater O is that this brother is my writing partner. He chooses to keep a lot of his things separate, and so this is just the way he does it, and I hope you guys all respect that. In any case, again, I hope you liked it, and if you would like to email him at any time, please do so. We will have links to do that, and any of the things that we may have talked about where we can pull information from, we'll definitely put the show note links in there for you. And now is the part of the show where I ask you to support the show. So supporting the show in the past has done some wonderful things. It's been able to allow us to offer our application for free through the podcast source, so you can get the wallpapers for your mobile device, as well as the PDFs that we read on the show right there in the app just for you. Maybe you have a lodge presentation and you totally forgot about it. Well, you got your phone on you. Maybe you can just whip that out and read a good paper. I know it's a cheap shot sometimes. Guys don't like just reading papers or a short talk bulletin in lodge, but nonetheless, it is a resource for you, and it is because you guys have supported the show. You've all been producers of this program, so for that I thank you. In addition, we have our shopping, so if you want to check out any of the really cool stuff that we have on onit.com, Alpha Brain is my favorite product they offer. It does some amazing things. It clears my head up, and of course, one of the weirder side effects of Alpha Brain, you get two crazy things that kind of happen. You get some lucid dreaming that happens if you take it before bed, and if you take it just every morning like I do, it's kind of interesting. I wake up and I'm up. There's no grogginess. It's kind of a weird thing, and I believe that's due to the vitamin count that's in it. Don't believe me? Try it yourself. If you don't like it, they'll give you all your money back. So check it out. Click through wcypodcast.com's links in the support the show tab to onit.com and use the promo code WCY. So when you do that, you get 10% off, and the show gets a little bit right back to us. So again, thanks for checking that out. FreemasonryArt.com. Again, you all know Brother Juan Sepulveda and his amazing art. So if you get a shot, please go on over there and check out any number of the new things he's got, especially his new stuff that revolves around the 7 liberal arts and sciences. Just tremendous artwork. Again, use promo code WCY. If you're on FreemasonTees.com, some of the most original Masonic printed t-shirts that you'll ever see right there. FreemasonTees.com. Again, use that promo code WCY. And we also have our PayPal direct donation. So whether you want to donate $1 or $2, that goes right into the production of this show and helps every episode stay up to date and available for everybody forever. In addition to those things, we, of course, again, we offer our lapel pins. They are $10, $2 to ship. They are a great pin to have because, as some of you may know, we ran out of them super quick The last time we had a really limited quantity. But this time around, we have them in a pretty good quantity, and they are still kind of flying off the shelf, so to speak. It's a great pin. It isn't show branded. It just says Whence Came You on it, so it doesn't say a podcast, doesn't have my name or anything. I wanted to make sure that it was Masonic in nature without any ties to anything. So, of course, you can get that pin. It is solid brass. It has a great enamel pour on it. It has some gold leafing in it, and the back of the pin has a E-clasp, so it's not your typical butterfly clasp. You actually have to pull the pin out to get it off, so it's not going to pop off if your seatbelt grabs it or something like that. Maybe you forgot to take your jacket off when you got in the car and you put your seatbelt on, and when you took it off, the pin goes flying. It's happened to me several times, and I'm looking around the floorboard for it. Well, that's not going to happen with these. Again, check those out if you get a chance. WCYpodcast.com and click on the limited edition store. This week's famous Freemason, Samuel McLaughlin, founder and president of McLaughlin Carriage Company, which later became General Motors of Canada. He was from Cedar Lodge, number 270, Oshawa, Ontario. He was the Grand Steward in 1945, a 75-year member in the craft. Also belonged to the Royal Arch, the Knight Templar, and he was the president of the Oshawa Shrine Club. That's it for this week, guys. Find us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Whence Came You. You can check us out on Google Plus at the email address wcypodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget about the Midnight Freemasons, publishing amazing content 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The Masonic Roundtable goes live every Tuesday night, 10/9 Central, whether I'm there or not. These guys are workaholics when it comes to Masonry. They don't miss an episode. They are super serious, and we have a lot of fun. So please check us out. Brother Stephen L. Harrison's new book is only $1.99 as an ebook from Kindle. It is tremendously entertaining, and it will capture your imagination. So please check out this book. It is called Freemasons at Oak Island. In addition, we of course still have Kindle and paper copies of Tales from the Craft, which is another great book. Just as a reminder, next week we do have Brother Toth, and then our big 200th episode. So there's still time. I still have some space left in the show. If anybody wants to be on the show in the 200th episode and wants to do a shout out to their lodge or anything on the program, please go ahead and send me an audio clip, and I will definitely try to fit it in the show. You can just email those clips to wcypodcast@gmail.com. That's it, guys. Stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson.